Hello and welcome to this pattern recognition video. So here I have more basic checkmates. One of the best ways that you can improve your chess is to go over puzzles that are not too difficult, easier ones that are kind of like the basics. And you just keep going over those puzzles and drill them into your memory and until you recognize those patterns. So then when you're playing your games, you will start to see those checkmates or other tactics. These are just checkmates in this video, but in the future I'll do other tactics as well. So let's take a look at this problem. Here we have, looks like a knight has just moved here, attacking our queen, but it's black's turn to move, and we're looking for basic checkmates here. So how can we checkmate our opponent's king? Well, when you want to start on any tactics or any position in chess and try and figure out what move is best, look for checks, captures, and threats in that order. Checks are most forcing, and so you want to look at those first to see if there are any immediate checkmates. Well, the queen is doing a good job of covering all these squares and this diagonal, and the knight is covering this. So the king is kind of in a stalemated position. It can't go to any of these squares here. And so it's trapped. So what we want to do now, especially when this king is trapped like this and can't go anywhere, is look for any checks. Now, if we move the queen to check, well, then it won't be guarding all these squares. So we want to see if there are any other pieces that can check the king. So hopefully you found the answer. Pause the video at any time if you need more time to think. If not, let's take a look here. Well, what other piece can check the king? It looks like this bishop here to h6 can fire down this diagonal, delivering a check. And when a king is in check, there are three options. Capture the attacker, which cannot be done once the bishop moves here. Block the attacker, or run. Now, we already saw that the king can't run. There's no way to capture and no way to block, and so that leads to mate here. All right, so these problems are supposed to be rated anywhere from 500 to 1500. I don't know if that's an actual rating, how accurate that rating estimate is, but this was supposed to be around a 1091 rated puzzle. All right, hopefully you found that one. I'll try and speed it up here so we can get more of these problems done. Maybe we can get 20 in. That's a good batch. So here we go. We're looking for checks and see if any of these checks can lead to a mate. Well, you want to look at the pieces that are all around the king side here. We have two knights and then this rook queen battery. So maybe that'll give us a hint on what to do. And first you want to look for any checks. The queen is blocked by this knight and cannot deliver a check here. This knight could go here and deliver a check. It could go here, but then it could be sacrificed. Either way, the bishop would capture here or the pawn would capture here. So what else can we do here? Maybe that's the way forward, is to move that knight. If we check, that's a forcing move. The king has to deal with it by either capturing. You can't block a knight. That's one thing about the knights that's a little different from the other pieces. And I guess the pawns as well. There's no way to block pawns or knights. So when they're checking, the king can run or capture. Now, most likely, if we move the knight up here, the bishop would capture. And then is there a follow-up with the rook queen battery? We could check. All right. This one is a little trickier. Hopefully you found it already. Um, let's see. If we check here, the bishop captures. Our queen could go up here with check. But then what do we do? All right. Well, maybe there's not an immediate check here. Maybe we need to create a threat of a checkmate. So we have maybe this possibility of going here, and threatening a checkmate up here. But we have to see what our opponent can do in the meantime. He could push this pawn to block. And then what? Well, we could capture with check. The pawn could recapture. Then our queen could recapture on this square here, renewing the threat of mate. But then a piece could guard against that. If the queen moves, we could pick off the knight here. So maybe the rook would come down. All right, I didn't expect this one to be so tricky. All right. Maybe this wasn't quite so basic. It must be a little higher rated. Either that or I'm just missing something. So do we capture with the knight first? Then if the king captures, our queen could deliver a check. The king goes back over to where it was here. And then what? All right. I don't know. I'm thinking something maybe that has to do with this rook queen battery here. Maybe. Oh, okay. The other knight. All right. This one was a little tricky. Hopefully you found it. So take a look at this. Pause the video if you haven't discovered it or solved it already. All right. So I'm thinking knight checks here. So when the king is in check, it can run. If it runs into the corner, then our other knight could deliver the mate here. So it wouldn't want to run into this corner. So running can't block because it's a knight. So when the knight goes here, if the pawn captures, well, then our queen could come up here delivering a check and then swing over to here, backed up by this knight. All right, I know that one was a little tricky. See if you can figure it out in your head. And if you're ready, here we go. And mate. All right, that was 1231 rated, so that one was a little tricky there. Hopefully you did well on that one. On to the next one. What was that? A rook is just moved, guarding this pawn, this passed pawn. And hopefully you'll be able to find this one fairly quickly. This is a basic, basic mate. Pause the video if you want to look at it a little bit longer. If not, let's solve this. All right, it's a back rank mate. So there's a little hint. If you're ready, here we go. So mate in one up to here. And the other rook is covering this rank. So there we go. And that was rated 937. So a basic checkmate there. All right, on to the next problem. The queen has launched forward, attacking our queen. What can we do here? All right, well, hopefully you found this one. Another basic mate. Pause the video if you need more time to think. If not, it's another back rank mate. There's a hint for you. So here we go. Queen is going to move to here, checking the king, forcing it into the corner because we can't block, we can't capture. It's backed up by the rook here. And then he has to run. So the king's going to run into the corner, and then we sacrifice the queen. The rook will capture, and then our rook will recapture, delivering a mate here. All right, here we go. Try that out in your head if you can figure that out. That's always a good thing to do, is try and complete the whole problem in your head, thinking it out. That'll help with your calculation skills. All right, here we go. So a back rank mate there that involved a queen sacrifice. So always keep an eye out for those back rank mates. That was 719 rated. On to the next one. So the queen is what? Was that a capture? So we're looking for a mate here. All right. Well, okay. Now this one's a little tricky, but hopefully you figured it out. Remember to look for all the checks first. So our queen is under attack. You might be thinking, should I move my queen? But if we go for a check with the queen, their queen can just capture us. And then how do we continue? All right, so we have to look for any other checks other than the queen here. If the queen would capture the queen and the rook would recapture, like this, our rook could come up here and check, but then the king could escape and then attack the rook. So that might give you a clue. Sometimes the move order is a little bit different than what you expected. So we'll go with the rook. Pause the video if you need more time to think. If not, we're going to go here. So if the king has two options, the opponent has two options. If they capture with the queen, well then this queen will capture and deliver the mate. If the king runs to here, well then the queen can swing over here and deliver a mate. So interesting little tactic there. All right, here we go. And the king does run, and we deliver the mate. 977 rated, another basic checkmate there in 2. All right. The knight jumps forward, attacking our queen and our knight, which is also being attacked by this knight. We're looking for a mate, though. So take a look at this. Hopefully you found it already. This is a pretty basic mate. Pause the video if you need more time. If not, here we go. Well, we see that the knight is covering this. And if we look for checks, the queen could capture with a check and be backed up by the knight. So that was the mistake of moving this knight out, from here to here, because the knight was guarding that bishop. But now we can just capture. So a mate in 1 there. Pretty basic, using the knight to back up the queen and deliver a mate. All right, on to the next one. A pawn is pushed forward, blocking a potential mate. A potential mate with these queen and bishop attacking up here. So how do we continue? Well, we want to look for checks first. And, we have a bishop possible. Bishop check, but then the knight could just recapture that. What else do we have? A queen sacrifice here is possible. So, maybe that is what we have to go with. So take a look at that. Pause the video if you need more time to think. If not, that's what I'm thinking. So the queen captures, forcing the king to recapture. Then the rook can slide over and check again. The king will be forced to move over to here. And then our bishop can check. The king will have to move back, over to the H file, and then our bishop can move with a discovered check. So a little tricky, but hopefully you can find this. Try to calculate it out in your head. All right, if you're ready, here we go. Okay, so the sacrifice, the rook swoops in, the bishop, and then we move for a discovered attack by the rook. The bishop will probably move down here to block, but then we can just capture. So, and we don't want to bring our bishop back this way. We have to prevent the king from escaping here on G7. So we got to go up that way. So here we go, and the mate. So interesting mate there. So, this is a basic theme of where you have pawns that are kind of in a fianchettoed position around the king, and it creates, possible weak squares, around the king here, and we were able to take advantage of that with the bishop and the rook here. All right, on to, that was a 1439 rated, so a little more complicated or harder to see. Okay, the king was in check, moved forward because the rook was attacking. What do we do next here? So we just have a knight and a rook. The king is trapped on the edge here on the A file. What checks do we have? Well, we have a rook check or a knight check. All right. How do we do it here? How do we trap this king and checkmate them? If the rook moves up here, the king will be forced to go here, and then the knight can't deliver any more checks. So, what else do we have? Maybe the knight has to check first. Once again, the king can go up here. And then how do we deliver another check? All right, interesting stuff here. This looks like more complicated than it should be. So hopefully you're finding this one more quickly. And sometimes even if it's a basic checkmate, it might be one that you've never seen before. So it's going to be harder to find those because you don't recognize the pattern. All right, so let's go back here. All right, obvious moves are to check. Okay, and that forces the king to move up here. Okay, but then what do we do? Okay, so maybe we move the knight first. So check. Here, let me think it out first. We go here, forcing the king to move here. Then our knight can swing back to here, taking the pawn and delivering a check. If the king goes back to where it was, the rook can deliver mate here. If the king moves up to here, then we can deliver a mate up here. All right, so that was a little tricky. Try and figure that out in your head. All right, hopefully you can figure it out. Here we go. Check, check, and then we deliver a mate there. All right, well, on to the next problem. Oh, the queen just captured our knight. What can we do here? Well, the only check is this. Well, not the only check. There is another one. But if we go there, the queen, it's a sacrifice. Then we could go here, just trades material. So the other option is a check there, but that can be blocked by the rook or the queen, or the king could move into the corner. So what should we do here? Oh, okay. So we have to set up the checkmate here. So if we set up the checkmate, then maybe it'll work. We can't, our immediate checks might not work, so we have to figure out another way to increase the attack on this square here. So maybe we bring the rook up here, attacking the queen, and if the queen moves, well then we just deliver a mate here. Unless the queen captures, which would be kind of forced. So rook here, threatening the mate. Queen would be forced to capture, I believe. Or, the rook could block. But it's looking bad. Let's say the queen captures, or other rook captures, renewing the threat. Well, then you could have a block with this pawn. The queen could move up here, checking. But you'd be ahead in material, but does it lead to a checkmate? All right. Is there something more immediate? Maybe we do sacrifice there and then capture. I don't know. That doesn't look good, though. I mean, we could move our rook, but then we'd be down material. So that looks to be best. What does the queen do there? Probably capture, giving itself up. Then the other rook comes up. All right, that's what I'm going to go with. All right, and I don't know if this would lead to a checkmate, because the queen would be forced to give itself up, either by blocking with the rook maybe, or just capturing the rook immediately with the queen. Anyway, sometimes you can threaten a checkmate, and then if it doesn't work out, you just win material. They stop it by giving up material, but then you should be able to win with the extra material. All right, on to the next problem here. What did we have? A capture. All right. Well, pretty basic checkmate here. Hopefully you found it. Take a look. Pause the video if you need more time. If not, here we go. I'm thinking the bishop is probably the first move, delivering a check. The other option is the queen, but the king could escape here. And then if the bishop checks, then by going here, the king can escape over here. So we probably need to move the bishop first. So sometimes the move order of your checking pieces makes a big difference when you're trying to checkmate. So keep that in mind. So check here with the bishop first. The king can't run anywhere. The rook could block, but then our queen could deliver a back rank mate here. All right, check. First they block with the pawn, so then the rook, and then the back rank mate. All right, another back rank mate. So Bobby Fischer put out a book years ago. I think it was called Bobby Fischer Teaches Chess, maybe. And it featured a lot of tactics that are good to know. And back rank mates were covered quite a bit in that book, so it's worth checking out. All right, here we go. On to problem number 11. I'll try and do 10 more. Hopefully this video won't drag out too extremely long. All right. Let's look for checks. Well, we have possible checks, but this bishop is unprotected, and I'm thinking the king could run over, just capture that and escape. All right, this one looks tricky here. If we try to save the bishop, that gives our opponent time to attack by capturing here with check. So do we have anything more immediate? We have, have to look at the checks first. Well, does a queen sacrifice work? If they the king could just capture, and then if we try to check with this knight, the king could just capture our bishop, escaping. So, if we check with the knight first, once again, the king can just capture. And then how do we continue? I don't know. This one is looking pretty tricky. Do we just capture the rook first? That would keep material even after they captured our bishop. All right, do we take the knight here? If we do that, once again, the king could just capture. So maybe we have to threaten. We don't deliver a mate immediately. Maybe we have to set it up first. How do we do that? Well, the queen is lined up here, so if we could add another piece to that, maybe that would help us deliver a mate. So I'm thinking put the knight here first, threatening a mate here. The queen, if the king captured the bishop, then we could deliver the mate up here. So maybe the queen would move. Then if we captured, the king could run. So maybe we go here, and that also, maybe that's better. If we go there, the queen moves, and we capture with check. The knight here would be preventing the king from running over here. All right, we have a tricky one here. So I'm thinking knight checks. Oh, okay. That immediately forces the king because he's in check and he has to run. Either capture the bishop and then we deliver a mate. All right, hopefully you found that one. There we go. That was a little easier than I thought. Maybe I made that more complicated than it had to be. All right, on to the next. And that's why it's good to do these patterns, or study these patterns. So the more of these you see and go over these more than once. So, if you go over this video multiple times and burn the patterns into your memory better, hopefully you'll recognize them quicker and more easily in your own games. All right, the next problem. We have the rook here, pinning our rook to our king. And they're tripled up on the E file here. But do we have the possibility of delivering a mate? I believe we do. It looks like a mate in one. So take a look at it. Pause the video if you need more time. If not, let's look at the checks first, the most forcing moves. Okay, we could go here. And how would the king get out of that? Well, the king can't run anywhere because the rook is covering that. The queen is covering that. And these pawns and queen are covering these squares. So we have another stalemated king here that can't move anywhere. But if we go here with this pawn, the queen could capture. So maybe we have another check. So take a look at all the possible checks and hopefully you'll figure out which one is best. All right, and hopefully you found this move, which cannot be captured. Once that pawn moves here, there's nothing to capture it. And that's a more rare case of a pawn delivering a mate here. So here we go. And mate by pawn. All right, on to the next problem. Pawn pushes forward, gaining space, I guess, maybe threatening the bishop in the future. But what do we have? What can we do here? We have different, only two different checks possible by the knight. So knight here or knight here. The rook can capture either way. So, we have another check possible here, sacrificing the rook, and maybe that's what we want to go with. But they don't have to capture that. The king could run. If the king runs, then what do we do? Do we have a follow-up? Because the king could run over to here. The bishop is covering that diagonal, preventing the king from running over that way. All right, so is it a rook sacrifice? Is that what we want? Then if they capture, we would have this mate. But like I said, they don't have to capture. Because if we go there, the king can just run. If he blocks, we just capture. And the rook or the bishop is backing up our rook. So most likely he would run. And then what do we do after that? Well, then we would just capture material. We grab this bishop over here. So maybe that's what they want. We're threatening the mate and they have to give up material. So yeah, instead they go after our rook, but they didn't have to do that, but they would have lost material. All right, so we have the mate here with the bishop and rook. So this is a good pattern to know using the bishop or a queen to protect a rook, or bishop and queen having the queen on the mating square. All right, here we go on to 14. Oh, the knight has just moved, forking our queen and our bishop, so we have to do something immediately here. All right, the queen bishop battery. We can deliver a check. If we check this way, the pawn could block, or the knight could block. So maybe we have to go with the bishop up this way. So pause the video if you want more time to think it all out on your own. But if not, I'm thinking we go up here. Then what? The king runs, and our queen goes here, delivering a mate. All right, there we go, and the queen delivers a mate. So this is an interesting pattern to know. When the queen delivers a check on the corner, so a king has all these squares around it here, all these squares. Now, once the queen checks on the corner, one of the corner squares around the king, the queen usually covers all these squares, but here the knight is blocking, so the queen is not actually covering that square, and the two opposing, on the opposite end of the queen, the two opposing side squares, the queen does not cover those. But here, the bishop is covering the one, and the other two have pieces on them, allowing the queen to checkmate. So that's an interesting pattern. All right, the next problem. The king was in check by the knight, jumps into the corner, and what do we do here? All right. Take a look at this. Look for checks first, as they're the most forcing. And pause the video if you need more time to think it out. What would you do in this position? Hopefully you found the answer. And a hint is a possible queen move. So hopefully that helps you figure out what to do. The move is a little more shocking because it's not a queen move that tries to set up a mate. Well, I guess it does, but it's a queen sacrifice. So hopefully that tells you what to do. You sacrifice the queen, forcing the king to take. Then the rook follows it up, attacking. And the only thing to do is block, but then the rook will capture and deliver a mate. All right, so see if you can figure that out in your head. Here we go. Check and block and checkmate. All right. We just had a capture here. Our queen and bishop are being forked. Hopefully you found this one fairly quickly. It's a mate in one. So take a look at all your possible checks, and that'll help you find the mate. All right. Pause if you need more time to think it out in your head. If not, I'm saying we go right here, and that delivers a mate. All right. A mate in one. The queen covers these squares and attacks the king. That was a 796 rated one, so a basic problem there. On to the next one. The pawn is pushed forward, attacking our pawn. What do we do here? All right, do we have any checks? The king is kind of back away from all our pieces. This one might be a little more tricky because I do not see any checks possible. So that means we have to set up a checkmate somehow. But how do we do that? Well, we might need to open lines for our pieces. We have a rook-queen battery. If this queen could go up here delivering a check, the bishop is cutting the king off this way. The only square is here. But that does look like the queen could escape there. We could come down here and capture this pawn, checking. The king could just escape up here, but then we go after the rook. We would knock out a lot of material. Is there anything more forcing? Oh, we do actually have one check. But does that, is there any follow-up to this? Queen sacrifice here with check. But if the pawn captures our queen, then what? Then I don't see anything, any way to follow up after that. Huh. All right, this one is just a tricky one. All right. Well, maybe we have to reposition our queen. We could go here, attacking the rook, and if that rook moves back, well, then we could go up here, delivering a mate, because the queen could block, but then our queen could capture and be backed up by the bishop. Whew. That one's a little trickier, so hopefully you were able to find that one. All right, yeah, that was a 1362 rated problem. So that might have been a little bit more than the end result. The mate is actually basic, where you have a bishop backing up a queen, but finding it was a little more difficult. Hopefully you did all right in that. All right, we have 3 more problems to go. Our knight has just launched forward here, attacking our queen. What do we do? It's blocking an attack on their queen, though. All right, we have knights and the queen lined up here. Hopefully we can deliver a mate. All right. Well, look for those checks first, and hopefully this will help you find the answer. All right. Here we go. What checks do we have? Only one, it looks like. And that should be the right one. Okay. Knight jumps over there. So knight up to here, check. The knight could be captured, but then it opens up the line here for the queen to deliver a mate. And the knight is covering that square to prevent the king's escape. And the rook, is like blocking the king's escape also. Now the other option is if the knight checks and the king runs into the corner, well then it's an immediate mate also. All right, here we go. Check, capture, and mate. All right, a basic queen and knight mate there. So hopefully you found that. On to the final 2 problems. All right, pawn pushes forward. Okay. Well, this looks interesting. We should look for the checks first. We have a battery here with bishop and queen, but their queen is guarding all of these squares. Now we have an option of capturing here, but does that do anything? The pawn or the bishop could recapture. All right. Well, I'm thinking we check with the queen. Then what? If we do that, the king is pretty much forced. He can't block because the pieces are side by side. He can't capture because it's backed up by the bishop. He can only run. The only place he can run to. And this is another interesting pattern. When the queen is here, the queen will cover these squares here, and here. And these are the only two that are not covered. So the pawn is covering that, which means the king will have to go there. So check, king moves up here. And now, what do we do? We can't go here or the queen would capture us. If we go here, so check, king goes here, then our queen goes up here to check. The king will move back to where it was. And then what do we do? Huh. So maybe I'm missing something. Check. King has to go there. Huh. I don't know. This one's a little tricky. What am I missing here? Do we have to use the pawns? We check. King has to run. Then, do we capture? But then the bishop can capture, allowing the king to be able to run back to where it was. Man. All right, I'm missing something here. Check. King runs. If we go up to here, king runs back. Oh, then we go here. And when the queen blocks, we can capture. So yeah, sometimes you have to think like a couple moves deeper to find the problem, and that's what can make chess more difficult. All right, here we go. Calculate that out in your head if you can. If you're ready, let's solve it. Check, check, check again, and mate. All right. That was a 1380 rated problem, so a little more complicated, but another basic mate of bishop and queen. Just setting it up was a little tougher. All right, is this the final problem, number 20? Okay, here we go. Pawn pushed forward, protecting the knight. We could go after this rook, but we're looking for a mate. So hopefully you found this one. Pretty simple. Mate in one. All right, look at the checks. You don't want to bring the rook up or the bishop could just knock that out. That might make it a little bit longer, I guess. But what you're going for, you can get an immediate mate if you capture with the queen instead, because the rook is pinning the knight here. Oh, and also if you captured with the rook first, I guess the bishop could block, attacking your queen and blocking the check. So you have to go here immediately. And because of that pin by the rook, on the knight, it allows the mate in one, a basic battery, a bishop and queen. All right, so that was 20 problems. That last one was a 600 rated one, more basic. Hopefully you did well in these. So remember to study those tactics. Try and find basic patterns and go over them and over them until they're more burned into your memory, and it'll help you find those more easily in your own games. All right. As always, leave any comments that you would like to. Like and subscribe to support the channel. Thank you for watching and have a super chess day.